Hey there, how there, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to this primer for the 2026 PC Replay Baseball Super Tourney. Over the past 3 weeks, you probably had noticed that I've been doing PC Replay Baseball with brackets and going through tournament format and all that. So, to find 32 teams out of a possible 96. So, there were 24 seasons slash uh, decades that I went through. I'm going to go through them in quick order. The 1908 season, the best of the 20s and 30s set. The 1930 season, the best of the 40s and 50s. The 41 season, the 47 season, the 55 season, the best of the 60s. 1961, 1969, the best of the 70s, the 1977 season, 1980 decade set, 1981, 1985, the best in the 90s, 1993, 1998, a combination of 94, 01, and 04, because most of them will be for my Super League coming up after this project's done. The 2005 season, the 2016 season, the 2020 season, the 2023 season, and the Dead Ball season era, which is like teams from 1900 to 1910s. So using all 24 of those things, I did the top four, making it 96 teams, three brackets of 32. So what ended up happening was that if you won your season, you are given a 1 to 8 seed in either the A, B, or C bracket. And of course, everything was random, like randomly drawn. And based on your real life work, you got from 1 to 8. Like if you won a World Series in real life, you got a better seed and all that for the tournament and all that. So practically, you had to be there. If you take second in within a season set, you go from 9 to 16 in either one of the three brackets. Third, you go from 17 to 24, and the fourth place you go from 25 to 32. So basically, yeah, the better you do in the playoff thing, the better you do in everything else. And I also added the nuance that certain teams had to be split right down the middle, if you will. The Yankees, for example, had 9 teams qualify out of 96, so there was 3 teams in each of the three brackets, and no more than that. And then I had to be careful which ones to put in place. So that's what ended up happening. And then what ended up happening was to set up 32 teams divided by 3, that's 10 with 2 left over. So what happened was simple. If you win your championship, I mean, if you go on to the quarterfinals, you win your round of 32 and your round of 16 set, you are guaranteed to make the final 32 teams as one of the 24 teams, 8 per bracket, so that's 24. Meaning that we had to find wild cards. And the 3 wild cards per bracket were based on the fact that it was your record. You won your first round match by a certain amount, and then the second round, the 2 rounds combined, your plus minus, if you will get you better marks and all that. And the worst, well, the top 2 wild cards per bracket qualified easily. However, the 11th place teams were at the mercy. It was a 2 out of 3 thing. Based on plus minus, the bracket B 11th place team missed out because they were in the minuses and the other 2 were in the positives. So then, it was redrawn like your first place. So if you won the bracket, you are guaranteed spots 1, 2, or 3 in the real life bracket. If you take second, you go from 4, 5, 6. If you take third, you're 7, 8, 9, fourth, 10, 11, 12, and downwards. Like fifth, it goes from 13 to 15. Sixth, you go 16 to 18. You go 19 to 21 for seventh. Eighth, you go from 22 to 24. Ninth, it will be from 25 to 27. 28 to 30 for 10th, and 31, 32 for 11th place. And of course, a lot of people will be thinking, well, how do you determine, like, out of the top 2? The semifinals, for example. Well, semifinals, like the quarterfinals, the rule is the farther you go into a series. Seed numbers don't matter. Seeding number did not matter. Like the farther you go in a tournament, like if you lose in 7 games in a series, you take over and you were like a 23 seed, for example, you get the benefit of doubt over a team that lost in five. That yeah, that lost in five in the semifinals and were ranked number six. So that if you last longer without losing, you move on to the tournament. You get a better bracket. But so of course we'll go through each bracket and we'll go through each um, spots from 1 to 11, and then we'll do some breakdowns on how the franchises being involved, how many teams are in, and we will also tell you the seeding numbers and all that. So hang tight. All right, so we started with bracket A, which was done on that started Monday, January the 5th. And of course, every bracket went through 1 week. The the first 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, were just a round one setup. Wednesday, Thursday was round two, and then Fridays were quarters, semis on Saturday, finals on Sunday. Obviously, the teams were briefed that the farther you do, the better seed you get towards it, and it could be big. So here are the 11 teams that went through bracket A. The 1924 Washington Senators won bracket A. They were the champions, the only Washington team to win a world championship until those pesky Washington Nationals in 2019. Don't forget where you came from, Washington Nationals. You better not forget. And it would have been Montreal's half century year because, 50 years prior, in 1969, the Expos were born. Finally getting the big train, Walter Johnson, his trophy, his World Series ring, if you will, based on the fact that, he was legendary pitcher, but Washington just were inconsistent. Second place went to the 2020 Dodgers, who won the pandemic ridden World Series and all that. So, they were a great team, starting out a dynasty of the Dodgers, winning 3 titles in the 2020s. The 1985 Cardinals, the year of my birth, took number 3. They won the LCS in a classic against LA with Ozzie Smith's home run from the left side of the plate, which he rarely did, if any, in Game 5 of Tom Unifier. And then Unifier gave up the home run to Jack Clark in Game 6 that saw the Cardinals go to the World Series, losing 7 to the Royals. There were a lot of factors. I mean, Dankinger was hurt. Dankinger was the umpire, and of course, instant replay was not there. If it was instant replay, then uh, was it Orta who would be out at first base? I think he would have been George Orta. Of course, the Cardinals kind of imploded in a sense. And also, Vince Coleman was actually hurt. So that could have helped the Cardinals. The 1998 Padres made a rally from the 26th seed or something like that? Well, the 24 Cents were number 2 seed. The 2020 Dodgers, no, sorry, Washington was number 17 in bracket A. LA was number 3. The Cardinals 14. The 98 Padres were ranked number 26. They were really low on the list, but somehow they got to the semifinals. They crapped out early in the semis, but they will get a 4 seed, which means they're top 12 guaranteed. The 98 Padres shocking a lot of people by winning the LCS against the Atlanta Braves and going to the World Series and getting swept by those pesky Yankees. The 1941 Yankees took number 5. They were the 1 seed. They were the number 1 seed based on their World Series, so they were hoping to win the tournament, but they didn't. They took 5th. They lasted the longest of the quarterfinal losers. The 41 Yankees, that was Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak season, and they won the World Series because Brooklyn fumbled. Mickey Owen made that bad play in Game 4 of the World Series. The 6th seed is the 95 Tribe, who were ranked number 10 in this in the bracket, but they take 6th. So, yeah, they were seeded 10th, but they took 6th. The 95 Tribe, 100 wins, 44 losses in the lockout shortened year. Well, the start of 95 was shortened because of the strike. And Albert Bell, 50 home runs, 50 doubles, didn't win the MVP. Mo Vaughn did. I think a lot of people said it was because of his moodiness. They lost to the Braves in the World Series, what they call the politically incorrect World Series, because, Braves and Indians. The 7th seed in bracket, the 7th place team in bracket A was the 61 Giants. They were ranked number 13 to start with. The 61 Giants, the team that the next year they went to the World Series with many of their core from the 61 Giants, but the 61 Giants could not catch those pesky Reds in the race for the World Series. Finishing in 8th place was the 1979 Orioles. They were seeded 18th, but they did a good job. The 79 Orioles, great pitching. They were up 3-1 on the Bucks and the Pirates in the World Series, but blew it. Taking ninth, the 1965 Twins, who were seeded 11th. The 65 Twins, the team that lost the World Series Game 7 on home turf to the Dodgers and Sandy Koufax. They caught a break because Sandy Koufax refused to pitch Game 1 because of Yom Kippur. The funny thing is, if you look at the Twins in Minnesota and the three times they went to the World Series, 1965, 1987, 1991, they had home field advantage in all three, meaning they had 12 World Series games. How many times did they win? 11. The Twins were 11-1 in the World Series at home, and that one loss was 1965. Taking 10th place in the bracket, the 1920 Indians, who were seeded 20, who were seeded number two. Yeah, they were seeded number two because of their World Series prowess. They were given the 2 seed, but they survived somehow. They managed to get in as a wild card. The team that had the assisted triple play of Bill Wamsnas in the World Series, winning the title for Cleveland, their first ever title. And the worst part was for Cleveland, they lost their shortstop Ray Chapman to a darkened baseball because of him getting beamed as well by kind of a spitball by Carl Mays of the Yankees. Fortunately for Cleveland, they moved on. They won the World Series without Chapman. They gave a World Series share to his widow, and Joe Sewell was his replacement, and he was hard to strike out. And taking 11th place, the 1947 Dodgers, they were seeded. What were they seeded? I need to know. They were actually seeded fourth. So they were projected to do well, but they fumbled. Fortunately, they got that 11th and final spot. The 47 Dodgers went to the World Series. They broke up Bill Bevins' home no hitter in one game. And Jolton Joe DiMaggio robbed Algie and Fredo of a big 3-run home run in Game 5, and then Bill Bevins had a no hitter going in the sixth and in the ninth in Game 6 of the World Series. In real life, Brooklyn broke that up but lost Game 7. This was, of course, the year that Jackie Robinson integrated baseball. So those are your 11. Now let's look at bracket B. All right, so bracket B happened the week of January the 12th to the 18th. And so, of course, 32 teams spread out. Top 10 teams automatically got in, and their 11th place needed some help. So the final standings are these. The 1942 Cardinals, ranked number 2, was given the 2 seed in this bracket. They ended up winning the tournament. That was a humongous one for them. They were pretty good. The Cardinals in the 40s were decent. The 1911 Philadelphia A's, who were seeded 17th in this bracket, they ended up being the runners up. They actually were dead ducks early. They were down 3-0 to the Washington Senators of 1930, but somehow pulled off the reverse sweep to move on, and then they ended up in second place. That's resiliency. Of course, in real life, this team won the World Series, and they had the $100,000 infield. Of course, $100,000 was way big in 1911. Third place in this bracket was the 1909 Pirates, who were ranked number 26 to start. They were seeded 26th and then ended up in third place. The 1909 Pirates, the team that actually beat Ty Cobb in the World Series, which was unusual, but yeah. One of their legendary players was George Gibson, a Canadian from London, Ontario. Sorry, as a Kitchener man, I have to spit when London is mentioned. But yeah, Pittsburgh, Babe Adams also there too as a youngster. Fourth place in this bracket was the 99 Diamondbacks, who started as the 6th seed in this thing. So not bad. They got to the semifinals. This was when Randy Johnson helped the sophomore Diamondbacks do well. They got to the LDS, losing to Todd Pratt's Game 4 home run. And no, Kurt Schilling was not on this team. He was on the team next year in the trade for Travis Lee. The 54 Giants finished 5th. They were seeded number 25 to start. You know, as you said, the better you do in your season/decade thing, the better your seed is. But yeah, they were ranked pretty bad, 25th. But they got 5th. They were the longest serving of the quarterfinal losers. The 54 Giants in real life, Willie Mays coming back from the Army and all that. And the Giants going to the World Series against the powerful Cleveland Indians and then sweeping those guys, including Willie Mays' catching Game 1 of the World Series at the Polo Grounds. Could only happen at the Polo Grounds. If it happened in Cleveland, that was a home run. And Dusty Rhodes hitting the right field seats at the Polo Grounds, which was like 250 feet. And no, that's not the wrestler Dusty Rhodes. Anyway, the 1908 Cubs finished sixth in this bracket. They were actually given the number one seed because of how good they were, and they were kind of the defending champs from the 2025 version, but they ended up at six, which was kind of a shock. The 1908 Cubs, the last Cubs team to win the World Series for 108 years. The 93 Cardinals finished seventh in this bracket. They were seeded 24th to start. And they actually made a couple of massive upsets, including one against, I can't remember. Was it the 41 Yankees? No, it can't be the 41 Yankees. Yeah, it was the 40. No, it wasn't. Who did they upset? Oh, yeah, they upset Murderers Row, the 1927 Yankees of Ruth and Gehrig. They upset them in one round, and then they ended up in seventh, which was pretty good. Mark Whitten, the guy, 4 home runs in one game, although Cincinnati was basically running out of pitchers and all that. But yeah, they ended up in seventh. The 2020 Cubs, who played in the playoffs in the pandemic, they finished eighth in this bracket. They were seeded 21 to start, so yeah, the 2020 Cubs. Ninth place in this bracket went to the 1908 Tigers, who ended up doing well. They were ranked 20. They were seeded 28th, but the 1908 Tigers did so. Ty Cobb as a youngin, and the team that lost to the 1908 Cubs in the World Series. Well, the 1908 Cubs and Tigers both had what they called interesting pennant races, as the 1908 Cubs ended up having to fight off the Giants in a one-game playoff thanks to Burkle's boner. And the 1908 Tigers had to do with the White Sox in Cleveland in a three-way dance to be the AL champ. Of course, one team per league until 1969. 10th place in this bracket went to the 1941 Red Sox, who were seeded number 28 in this whole mess. So yeah, this was the season Ted Williams' 406. The rest of the Red Sox didn't do so well, but they made it through. And the 1977 Philadelphia Phillies, they were ranked, I think, 18th or something like that. They were seeded 18th. They took 11th and needed to get some help and all that. So the 77 Phillies, the only Phillies team that made the 916 thing from Philadelphia. So that's that. Let's go to bracket C. All right, so we got ourselves bracket C and all that. That just finished up today, January 25th. Of course, I'm taping this at night. I just finished up bracket C today. And kind of a spoiler. Well, yeah, you'll know. But the winner of the bracket went to the 1923 Monarchs, who started off number 28 or something like that. I didn't really look at the numbers, but yeah, the 1923 Monarchs, the Negro League champions who took fourth in the 2030s tour. But yeah, the Monarchs made it through and made Negro League baseball great. Although I gotta say, I know that they had the 1923 set for the Negro Leagues, but the problem is Josh Gibson, one of the best Negro League players of all time, alongside Don Newcomb, Willie Mays, Satchel Paige, they haven't been introduced yet. If it was the best of those leagues, we're good. Anyway, the 1912 Red Sox took second in the bracket. The team that won the World Series in a freshman Fenway Park because they played at Huntington Avenue grounds and then they moved to Fenway Park. And they've been there for 114 years. Can you believe that? But yeah, the 1912 Red Sox won the World Series thanks to what they call Snodgrass's muff, in which he made a terrible mistake in the outfield in the final game and the 10th inning that helped the Red Sox win. But John McGraw, the manager, did not hold it against Snodgrass or Fred Merkle for the matter in 1908. He gave them bonuses. Third place went to the 98 Yankees, who won the World Series. Some say the greatest team of all time because not only did they win 114 games, they actually won the World Series. You got teams like the 1906 Cubs and the 2001 Mariners with 116 regular season wins, but did they win the World Series? No. The 98 Yankees, 114 wins, did win the World Series. The funny thing is, I actually saw the 98 Yankees lose a game in Toronto on July 19th, 1998. One of the greatest days of all time in my book. Because the Jays took care of the Yankees 9-3, ruined Andy Pettitte. There was Canseco hitting a pair of home runs and Carlos Delgado going into the upper deck. Fourth place went to the 2020 White Sox, who were very resilient. They had a bad seed, but they did well. They did quite well. I mean, if you looked at the bracket, and all that, they actually went through 3 game 7s and won them all, which was shocking. They fell in the semifinals, but hey, you got a top 12 ranking. The 1981 Expos took fifth. They shocked a lot of people, especially beating the 1906 Cubs in the quarterfinal in the round of 16 to get to the quarterfinals, in which they lost in Game 7 to the 98 Yankees. But because they did the best of the 4 quarterfinal losers, they get the 5 seed and a home playoff series for sure. So the 1981 Montreal Expos, they won the NL East second half because of the split season and all that. It kind of ruined St. Louis and Cincy because they should have been in the LCS. In reality, Cardinals would win the World Series in 1982, so no big deal. Cincy, it took a while for them to get back to prominence. But anyway, the 81 Expos, the first time a Canadian team made the postseason. Toronto was still in their infant years, if you will. But they shocked Philly in the NL East playoff, and then they faced the Dodgers and lost on Blue Monday. Shut up, Dodger fans. Anyway, sixth place in this bracket, the 1990 Oakland A's, who did quite well. This team was looking to repeat their title from 1989, but they lost the World Series to those pesky Cincinnati Reds, who were no slouches either. They were wire to wire in the NL West. So Oakland had some great teams, but they got swept by the Reds. Seventh place in this thing ended up being the 1955 New York Yankees. They ended up in that spot. They were decent. The 55 team that lost Game 7 of the World Series on home turf to Don Newcombe and the Brooklyn Dodgers. The 1930 Cardinals took eighth. A lot of people said, oh, that's some kind of crappy team. Well, they weren't. They were actually the National League champions of 1930, one of the greatest offensive seasons around because of all those teams scoring 1,000 runs per game, and Hack Wilson putting up 191 RBIs. Ninth place went to the 2016 Cubs, the team that finally gave the Cubs fans 108 years of peace, winning a World Series. They were looking big. They beat the Dodgers. They were down 3 games to 1 to Cleveland, but by some strong luck, they ended up winning 3 straight games, and poof, they were going to the World Series, and they won Game 7 in Cleveland in extra innings, and it was just magic. 10th place ended up being the 1906 Cubs, the team that everyone thought was going to be a top 3 team, but they faltered. They lost to the 1981 Expos in the second round. Fortunately, though, their win-loss, well, they did sweep their opponents, but thankfully, and then they got taken up by Montreal, but thankfully for that, they ended up in 10th. The team with 116 regular season wins, but bear in mind, it was in a season that had 152 teams. And practically, if they had more games, they probably would have won more than 120. But yeah, they went to the World Series, lost to the hitless wonders of the White Sox, who could not hit for shit, but their pitching was just good. And the 1947 Tribe took 11th. That team with Dale Mitchell and Joe Gordon and all them surprised a lot of people, but that's it. So now let's take a look at the breakdown by franchise. So here's the spots in the final 32 by franchise. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 different franchises. Well, here's the thing though. Yeah, it's 17 different franchises. 16 of them are Major League franchises, and the Monarchs are a Negro League team. So that makes 17. So we got to figure out something here. But as we look at the list, the Cardinals and the Cubs have 4 teams out of 32. So they have one of every 8 teams is a Cardinal team or a Cub team. The Cardinals are separated by the 1985 squad, the 1942 squad, the 1993, and the 1930 squad. The Cubs have 1906, 1908, 2016, 2020. The Yankees only have 3. They had 9, the most in the round of 96, but they only got 3 teams, so 33%. Success rate, 41, 55, 98 for them. Cleveland, 1920, 1947, 1995. So Tim, Cleveland baseball fans should be happy Cleveland got 3 teams in. The A's franchise, well, the Philly/Oakland A's, 1911, 1990. Brooklyn/LA, 1947, and the Dodgers in 2020. The Washington Senators are 1924. They moved to Minnesota in 1961. The Twins of 1965. The Giants, if I'm not mistaken, Yeah, the Giants, they have two teams. One New York Giants team, 1954, the San Francisco Giants of 61, the Red Sox of 1912 and 1941, and eight franchises that have one team. The 79 Orioles, the 98 Padres, the 1909 Pirates, the 1981 Expos, the 2020 Tri Sox, the Monarchs of 1923, the D-backs of 99, and the Tigers of 1908. So, yeah, we had a lot of franchises. Cleveland, well, here's the breakdown. St. Louis brought six teams in, two in each of the three brackets, so they went 4 for 6, so 67% winning percentage. The Cubbies also went 4 out of 6, so for 67% success rate, that's good. The Yankees, 3 out of 9, 33%. Cleveland had 3 out of 7. They had 7, they got 3, so that is about 42%. Nice job. The A's, 2 out of 4, so 50%. The Dodgers franchise got, what, 6 teams in? The Dodgers had 7 teams and they only got 2 in, which is pretty impressive that the Dodgers would falter like that. The Washington/Minnesota Twins, they got 5 teams in and 2 in the main, so 40%. The Giants, they got 6 teams, 2 are in, so that's 33%. And the Bull Sox, 1 out of 4, 2 out of 4 for 50%. The Orioles, 1 out of 3, 33%. The Padres were only 1. The Monarchs only had 1 team in. 2. Yeah, so San Diego and the Monarchs 100%. Their only team got in. The Pirates were 1 for 4. The Expos were 1 for 2, 50%, not bad. Chi Sox was 1 for 3, so 33%. The Diamondbacks, I think they also had 1 team, didn't they? Yeah, the Diamondbacks had 1 team as well, so they were 100%. And the Tigres were 1 for 5, 20%. Let me see here. So if we look at the franchises that didn't have a team in play, Toronto only had 1 team, the 1985 team, but they didn't do so well. Texas only had 1 franchise, but they didn't get in. Philly had 1 franchise. They actually got 11th place, but they were the odd man out, unfortunately. So that failed miserably. Kansas City had 2 teams in the Royals, but they failed. The Astros were the biggest losers, I think. They had 5 teams, both the AL and NL, and they all floundered. All 5 Houston teams floundered. I think that's like the most cursed one, right? Yep. No franchise sent more teams to the 96 team tournament than the Astros with 5 and got 0 and got nobody in the final 32. I think there were a couple teams that were close to making it. All they needed to do was get to the quarters, but they failed. So, yeah, the Astros are the most hard luck franchise. Don't net for 5, whereas like the Padres and the Monarchs only got 1 chance, and the Diamondbacks, and yet they got all in. All right, so now the question on everyone's lips will be, what are the seedings and all that? For that, we will have to go to the video evidence and all that. Okay, so this is how the brackets are going to go. You see down there, I went by like the pull down. I went by 1908 downwards and all that. I went by the drop down by year, and then of course went with dead ball because that was the one that had the 1900s to 1910s team. I could have easily went with the 32 Super Tourney for 2026 and then just did the drop down from there, but I decided not to. I decided to go with this. Of course, this is not like the 1908 Cubs are not going to face the 1911 A's. It's just the numbers are going to be there, and yes, it will be lowest versus highest and all that. Because if the numbers didn't matter, if they were just all there, then it's whoever faces whoever, guaranteed. It's like the NBA fixed brackets, if you will. So I talked about this. So the 1995 Indians take on the 1908 Cubs. The Cubs are favored. The 1908 Tigers is the 1911 A's. I think the A's might pull this one off. The 1947 Dodgers against the 1924 Washington. I think Brooklyn might pull an upset. You never know. The 1920 Tribe against the 1912 Red Sox. I think the Bull Sox have this one. I think there's going to be an issue, though. If I'm not mistaken, isn't Larry Gardner and Smokey Joe Wood on both the Bull Sox team in 1912 and 1920 Cleveland? If so, then we'll have to do some liberties, if you will. The 1941 Red Sox take on the 1923 Monarchs. I think the Monarchs got this one in hand. The 1930 Cardinals against the 98 Padres. I think St. Louis is going to pull an upset. Padres, I don't completely trust. The 47 Tribe against the 1942 Cardinals. I think the Cardinals have this one. 55 Yankees, 54 Giants. I think the Giants are going to pull one out. They do play in the polo grounds. 1961 Giants against the 1941 Yankees. I think the 41 Yankees have this one. The 1965 Twins against the 98 Yankees. Yankees. 79 Orioles, 99 Diamondbacks. I think Baltimore might pull an upset. The 1990 A's against the 81 Expos. I really want Montreal to win. I really do. I would probably go with Oakland if I had an American bias, but I have a Canadian bias. The 1993 Cardinals against the 2020 White Sox. That's actually going to be a tight one. It's actually going to be like 21 versus 12. I think it's going to be the most 50-50. It's like the question mark. I think this will be the question mark series. Who will win? But I think the 93 Cardinals, well, they beat the 27 Murderers Row team to get this far. The 2016 Cubs against the 1909 Pirates. I think the Cubs might have this. They might pull it upset. The 1906 Cubs against the 2020 Dodgers. I think it'll be the Cubs pulling this one off. And the 2020 Cubs against the 85 Cardinals. I think the Cardinals will pull this one off. So that is that. We can save and all that. 2 days. Grace and all that stuff. So save. All right. So official rules. Save area 75 to date. Everybody save. Sack fly. Sack fly on runner scoring to get an RBI. Game winning home run. Change to base hit required to win. Nope. Pitcher must pass to 3 batters. Yep. Use the doubleheader extra inning rules. Nope. I'm not get. I do have extra inning rules for myself, but that does not mean a runner on second base in 2020. Doubleheader games. Why would you have doubleheaders? Replay options. Blah blah blah. Ballpark effects. Call for umpire. Column 6 home run rerule. Pivot. Blah 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 blah. Plus 2 to pitchers always enter game on A grades. No. Manually steal bases, no. I don't know. Default season options, plain strict order, nope. Filter, miss game rules, strict rotation, nope. Block rating, confirm AI stuff, set game kind class, blah blah blah. Nope. Display options, white chart book, transparent field with a white background, green background, grass backfield, no, because I want the display fielder, ballparks, display player, ballpark card. I don't do that. I just do both teams and all that. Um, Highlight card results in yellow. Display dice instead of numbers. Nope. Alternate alternative checkboard results. Show batter pitcher matchup. Transparent cards. Transparent lineups. Opacity. Animation. Animates them. Game flow. And all that. Font things. Drop down season selection. Nope. Play result. Use fielding precision numbers. No, I think you want to know all that. Landscape ballpark. No display replay win loss records. Current stats on the pitcher batting. Replay stats. Nope. We're gonna just do like the regular stats for now. I think what we'll do is game one. We will have like the stat talk about like games 1 and 2. Like there'll be 8 days. We're gonna talk about eight. We're gonna do 8 games per day. No, sorry. What am I thinking here? It was in my head here. There's 16 series that we're going to do eight game ones, and then the other 8 series that are not haven't had a game one done will be game 2 and all that. And I will decide based on a lot of things. Yeah, and then we'll do the replay stats once game 3 and 4 happen in a sense. Edit park graphics, create season, sound options, volume. I think the volume is perfect. Play game intro. We don't want to do that because there's some copyrighted figures like this week in baseball and all that. It could get us trouble. And 7th inning stretch, we don't do that because that causes a copyright problem. Okay, everyone else, rolling of felt, create season. All right, so multi-team players. Use actual trades. I don't know if I should put them all in. Keep an original team, multi-team players. I think we just go place on final team, right? Yes, we go place on final team. playoff options, DH for all. I know it's stupid, but I like the DH for all teams format because it brings in like your bench best or like players playing DH and all that to hit. I know RJL will be pissed off saying DH. I don't need no stinking DH for those pitchers, but you never know. Pitchers are available to hit actually. Keep management profile standings, reset usage, blah blah blah, strict rotation, create. Bum. Okay, so we gotta import the teams and all that. Yeah, once we do the super season, the Super League as we call it, things will be different. I might move the 1923 Monarchs to the Super League, but I'm only allowed 32 teams. So I might have to have like a playoff tournament or something to determine who gets the team and all that. So anyway, the 2026 Super Tourney, click on that. Okay. All right. So yeah, you got yourself today in baseball. You got all the playoff rounds and all that, like randomly selected. You got your matchups. You got your team summary. Like you can take a look at your rotation. You can look at all the shit going on. 95 Cleveland, for example. Schedule. Of course, as we said, we don't play in strict order, so we'll be doing that. And we're going to be determining which matchups we go first. That will go like the first few days. You got your bracket and all that. So that's just the way the seeding goes and all that. No changes to anything. Stats like team batting and player batting leaders, highlights, teams. You look at the stuff and all that. Players, options, in case you have to do it, reports, trade. You can actually trade people. Should be a trade for somebody. You could actually trade players to other teams. I might try something fishy. I might try something big. I might trade like their best player. I think I might try. I think, actually, I might try something funky. What I'll probably do is I'll probably trade like the losing player, the best pitcher of the losing team in each series to the one and the best hitter. I judge that to that team. So, for example, the 47 Indians, if they lose to the 42 Cardinals, Cleveland's best hitter and pitcher will be traded to the Cardinals, and the Cardinals can get rid of anyone they choose to make sure that they have like a super team. I think I might try that. That'd be kind of cute and all that. All right, so I'm just gonna go now. Let's look at the schedule. So let's see. Cleveland and the Cubs. Robux and R. Nagy, Roebuck, Summers, Combs, Branca, Walter Jones, Bagby, Smokey Joe Wood. So what I'll do is game one. So the 2020 Cleveland and 1912 Red Sox will play on game one. So that will be game one. So we'll do game one of that series. Um, we will also do 47 Cleveland and 42 Cardinals. So that will be game one of that series will be done. Cooper's a C. So 47 Dodgers against the 24 Washington. That will be game one. That game one will happen. 65 Twins taking on the 98 Yankees. That will be game one. We will be doing game one of that series for sure. The 2020 Cubs against the 85 Cardinals. So we'll to the lid lifter there. 95 Cleveland will against the 19 against the '08 Cubs. The 1908 Cubs will do the lid lifter there. So that's what, six? That's six. Okay, that's six. 65 Twins. Okay, we did that one. We'll do 79 Baltimore against 99 Arizona. And that's a 10. And we'll do 19, the 2020, the 2016 Cubs against the 1909 Pirates, game one. So that means that 08 Detroit against 11 A's will be game number 2. We'll be doing game number 2. That I'm just writing down my pieces of paper here. 47 Brooklyn. Nope. Nope. 20 Cleveland. 20 has that 41 Red Sox against the 23 Monarchs. That will be game 2. So we'll do game 2 of that series. 30 Cardinals against San Diego. That will be game 2. 47, 55 Yankees. So the 55 Yankees, 54 Giants. That will be game number 2. So we will, yeah. So the 8 series, the 1912 Red Sox, 42 Cardinals, 24 Senators, 98 Yankees, 85 Cardinals, 08, 1908 Cubs, 1999 Diamondbacks, 1909 Pirates. Those games will be TV time, and there will be a split. There will be a 2-3-3 split. So 2 games on Monday, 3 TV games Monday, 3 on Tuesday, 3 on Wednesday, 2 on Thursday, 3 on Friday, 3 on Saturday, and for game 2s. And we will take a Sunday rest break. We'll take a Sunday off. 61-41. 61 San Francisco against 41 Yankees. So that will have to be done. Yeah, no, Montreal game number 2. I feel so bad. Montreal will have to do game number 2. 93 Cardinals versus the 2020 White Sox. And finally, the 1906 Cubs have to play game number 2. So that's just the way the draw is made. Okay, so that's the way the draw is made. So let's just go to game 3. So these are the game 3s, and we will do 54 Giants, 55 Yankees. Game number 3, we'll do that series. That series. 1911 A's against the 1908 Tigers. We'll do that series game number. We'll do that game number 3. And all that. We'll do that one. 12 Red Sox against the 20 Indians. We'll do game number 3 in that series. So that has done that. 24 Washington against 47 Brooklyn. We will do that series. We'll do that game 3. We'll do Montreal. Okay, so we'll do 81 Montreal, 90 Oakland. That will be game 3. We'll do that one for TV time. It will be 2-3-3 as well. Next, week 2. And yeah, you'll see the schedule coming up shortly. Yeah, 1908 Cubs against the 95 Cleveland squad. They will play on. They will play. We'll watch game 3 in that one. Um, 41 Giants. So the 41 Yankees against the 61 Giants. That game 3 will be held. And 2020 White Sox against St. Louis. That game 3 will be held. Okay, so that means that 42 St. Louis against Cleveland. I guess I should do it like the first one. 98 Yankees against the Twins. That will be played on. That will be game 4. The 2020 Cubs will be a game 4 as well. They'll be doing game 4 of that one. 99 Diamondbacks against Baltimore. That game 4. 9 Pirates against the 16 Cubs. Game 4 in that one. The Monarchs series against Boston. That game will be game 4. Televised match. 98 San Diego versus St. Louis. And the 2020 Dodgers against the Cubbies. All right, so we got ourselves the setup for the first 4 games. Now there will be some series like if a series goes 3-0 and it's not scheduled to be televised for game 4, we will of course televise that for game 4. The surviving games and all that. So that's what we'll do. And just before we go. I have to make a double check on the 1920 Cleveland roster. Is Larry Gardner on that roster? The answer is yes, he is. He's 34, but he is on the roster. I wonder if he's like the main guy. Yeah, Gardner's the only third baseman in a sense. So Gardner's only third baseman. And I know Smokey Joe Wood actually turned into a hitter, but I don't think he played a lot. Yeah, Joe Wood pitches as well. He's 30 years old. Yeah, so he can play both batter and pitcher. So yeah, Smokey Joe Wood can't play for both teams. Like Larry Gardner plays for the 1912 Red Sox. So that means that Gardner can't face Gardner. I will like there'll be a couple games that are simulated that I can't stop it. Give it another try. But anyway, that's all we got. So we'll have 16 classic games, and then I will actually try to determine what matches I'm going to go for Monday, Tuesday, Monday, and all that. But yeah, so of course this isn't the end of the video. We will go and we will tell you about the format and the time this will be happening and all that. All right, so we have done that, and now we have the um, schedule in front of you. So tomorrow, January 26th to the 31st, 6 days of coverage. There will be games 1 and 2 of the round of 32. So the format will go 2 games, 2 TV games Monday, 3 on Tuesday, 3 on Wednesday of game 1. Game 2s will be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 2, 3, 3 with the amount of TV games. Nothing on Sunday, so February 1st is a off day. And then the next Monday, February 2nd to 7th, it'll be games 3 and 4, same format. It'll be 2, 3, 3, and then 2, 3, 3 again. Game two, yeah, 2 Monday, then 3 Tuesday, 3 Wednesday, game threes, and then next Thursday, Friday, 2, 3, 3 for game fours, and then of course rest day for the Super Bowl. February 9th to the 15th is games 5, 6, and 7. So depending on, like, I think it's TV time, is it? Or what? It'll probably be a 65-minute time limit per day. If not, if we can't finish it off at that time, then I think we're gonna, well, we know how many game fives are on pace. Well, if you're 2-2, then you're going to be simulated till game 6 because you know that series is not over yet. So the 9th to the 15th, yeah, we will use the full week. February 16th to 22nd, we'll start the round of 16, games 1 through 4 and all that through those 7 days. Probably do we'll probably do something different, I think. Yeah, we'll have to do something different. I think it's gonna be 4-4. That's 7 days. Well, let's see. Games 1 to 4, so 2 per day. I think what we'll do is, I know Thursday, but Thursday is actually a poker night that I don't need ball hockey. Now, the reason why Monday will only have 2 is because I do have to worry about golf for the match play, for the final match play tour. And only 2 on Thursdays because ball hockey takes precedence on Thursday over everything. And I want to make sure that and golf gets squeezed in before I have to head to hockey. February 23rd to March 1st, that week will be 5, 6, 7 with around 16. And then the next week, March 2nd to 8th, will be games 1 to 4 of the quarterfinals. And then from 9 to 15 will be games 5, 6, 7 of the quarterfinal. Semifinal week is March 16th to 22nd, and March 23rd to 29th is the grand final, 1 game per day. And of course, all innings will be simulated unless we have to go through. I don't know how many like game 5s and 6s and 7s and all that. So we'll probably be playing full games or probably playing half games. I don't know what we'll do. So anyway, that's my primer. I know it takes about 50 minutes, but you know what? It's worth it. It's worth every minute. Now you get to know what the heck I'm doing. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.